If you've ever seen a Unisport video, you've probably noticed the boot rack in the back with all the football boots that I've worn over the years. And today, I'm gonna take you through the entire collection. So we're gonna look at all the boots I've worn, we're gonna look at all the boots we have in the Unisport archives, all the special stuff, all the cool stuff, all the old stuff. And apart from just me walking you through a lot of cool football boots, it's actually also gonna be an educational look back through the football boot history, all the way from 1994 and up until today. So hopefully, you will also learn a little bit while having fun looking at football boots. And without further ado, let's turn around, get right into it. Let's start in the corner, the upper 90, the top bins, as you like to say. I got my Umbro boots here, and actually, I've used to like Umbro a lot, so I've kept a lot of my boots here. Got some Speciales, got some UXs, got some GT Pros, kind of reminiscent of the Vapor 3s. I've got my Umbro Stealth Pros. One of the first boots I actually reviewed for Unisport, really lovely. Pretty sturdy boot, but very, very nice. And also, of course, I got my Umbro UX Acuros. Lovely boots. One of the most underrated boots on the market. And bundled together with those are the Nike T90 boots. I've actually owned quite a few T90 boots over the years, but a lot of them have simply broken down because I've worn them so much. So this is what's left of it. Basically, I've got the Laser 4s here, and my favorite would probably be the T90 Laser 3 Elites. Not only do they look really cool with the carbon fiber sole plate, they also feel a little less chunky, more lightweight, still with that tank-like bulk you get in the T90 Laser 3. So yeah, that is the top left shelf. Then we move down a notch to the silo that actually took over from the Nike T90s, of course, the Nike Hypervenom silo. And as you can see, I have collected quite a few pairs, despite the silo only coming out in 2013. And the first one, the OG Hypervenom, is one, in my opinion, one of the best boots that Nike have made in the modern era. Look at it, it's a piece of art. It had one of the most amazing, pliable Nike skin uppers I have ever felt in my life. The comfort out of the box was back then so insane. We got the boots, Jolter and I, sitting in the office one late night. Jolter put them on and just ran around the office screaming, agility, agility. Amazing pair of football boots. And still to this day, I just pop them out whenever I really want to feel that, you know, little bit of nostalgia. It honestly, in terms of out-of-the-box fit, it doesn't get much better than this. Perhaps there's one boot I'm going to show you later, but this is a special pair to me. And I love the Hypervenom ones so much that I even made an ID pair in, let's see if I can get it out without causing too much trouble here, in blue and red, because my team plays in blue and red. I made it in AG, which I kind of regret because I love the FG plate as well. But there you go, red and blue. And I even took the IG game a bit further when the Hypervenom 3 came out and made this. Haters will say that it kind of looks like what Mbappe did for his Nike ID boots when Monaco won the championship. But fact of the matter is that I made these first. So Mbappe, you thieving little... No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. By the way, Mbappe has a black swoosh on his. I didn't, because I just like the way it looks. It's super clean, love my ID boots, and then finally, I'm gonna mention this. I'm gonna mention this because the Hypervenom 2, you know, you expected to come out and blow the Hypervenom 1 out of the water. It was such a brilliant football boot, one of the best boots, as I said, Nike have made for a long time. And then they gave us this. Initially, I actually thought it was a good idea. Introduce Flyknit, that's gonna be good. Give us a bit of dampening when we strike the ball, that's gonna be good. Give us lockdown, that's gonna be good. The thing is, it wasn't. It was too stiff, there was too much lockdown, and it wasn't really comfortable, and it didn't really become comfortable. So we had to wait until they fixed it and actually put the OG Nike skin upper on the Hypervenom 2.5. Now, the last thing I wanna mention on the shelf is, I'm a bit of a naughty boy, I know, because I haven't cleaned my Hypervenom GXs, so they're still a bit dirty. Just goes to show that I've just worn them this weekend because I love them so much. And yeah, beautiful boot, and we're back to that suppleness, supple upper, whatever you want to call it. It's really, really soft. So Hypervenom, we're back to where we started. On this shelf here, I'm mixing it up a bit. We got some Italian stuff over here. The first laceless boots ever made, the Lotto Giro Gravities. There you go. I got some Diodoras, got some New Balance. And this is kind of a mixed bunch for me because, as you know, I loved the New Balance Viseros. Probably one of the best boots of 2015. But then, well, they made the Vizero 2s and it's not the best boot of 2017 is what I can tell you. But I have a lot of those. As you can see, I'm stocked up on the Viseros. And then I have even more, mixed stuff over here. Got some Under Armour Spotlights. Lovely boot. I got the Under Armour 10K Force Pro 2s. Terrible boot. So I just basically keep them to remind myself of what not to choose in a football boot. I've got more Spotlights. Then I got my trusted Repula made in Japan's. Absolutely adore those boots. Need to wash them as well. And one of my favorite boots ever, if I can get them out, the Mizuno Morelia Neos. This is the first generation, but I love them. As you can see, I've worn them quite a bit. They're light, they're kangaroo leather, and the fit is absolutely amazing. So one of the gems in my collection. Plus, it's green. It's Unisport. Brilliant. And down here, you ask, okay, we got a pair of Sergio Ramos signed Legend 7s. We got some, Superfly 2s, wind chills, Vapor 4 SLs, the standard stuff, some boots that other people than me use. That's how it goes, Jolt's boots. There you go. Going a bit more center here, we're going to center mid, the Magista, if you got that one. Now, I got a pretty big collection of Magistas, again, seeing that it's a relatively young silo. And what I want to mention is probably my favorite pair of Magistas, my first blackout test boot. It came out, or was sent to me just after the big PR reveal of Magista. So it was the first time ever that I tried out what a high-cut football boot made out of Flyknit would mean. Loved it. It's black. It looks stealthy. And one of those very, very good memories of trying out a boot before it actually comes out. I'm one of the first people in the world to try it. Very, very privileged. And since I have, should we say, stacked up on the Magista, I've got a bit of everything. Few of the first colorways. Got a lot of Magista Opera 2s. Got some low-cut Magistas over here as well. And again, Opus Techcraft. Worn it quite a lot. Beautiful pair of football boots. So Magista, I got a few of those as well. Then guys, we come to the shelf that I probably use the most. Feast your eyes on the Mercurial shelf, the low-cut Mercurial shelf, that is, because if we move down a notch, we have the high-cut Mercurial shelf, but we're gonna get to that in a bit, because up here, we got some of the, my favorite pieces in my collection. I wanna start off with the OG R9 Mercurial 2.1s. Not the very first boot to come out. They made a little bit of a modification. The tongue was cut to be lower, and they made a little modification to the heel. But this is one of the first boots in the Mercurial collection that Nike ever made. And back then, it set a completely new standard. The first synthetic leather boot to ever be made. It was ridiculously light by those standards back then, and still a very, very good football boot. As you can see, it is size baby, but I keep it just because I love it so much. Then I actually also have the boot that came after the Mercurial R9s, the Match Mercurial that came in 2000. And still, by today's standards, it is a bit heavy, it is a little bit too sticky for my taste, but the sole plate is absolutely brilliant. And back then, it was ridiculously light. And actually, that can be said for basically any Vapor leading up to, I would say, the Vapor 5. But then I have a lot of generations. I have the first Vapor, went down under 200 grams, 196 shock orange here. I got the Vapor 2s in a few different colorways, the golds, the photo blues, the reds. They have lived a hard life, as you can see. It's a shame, but that's how it goes when you use your boots. And then basically I also have a pair of Vapor 3s. I'm gonna show you those later. I haven't got a pair that I can basically use because I won them so much that they broke. So yeah, there you go. Then I have the Vapor 4s, if I can get them out. I have so many Mercurials that it's basically a little bit of a struggle to get them out without everything falling down. Vapor Force took off the lace cover because it gave me blisters. There was simply too much lockdown in the midfoot, so my heel was stuck in a really weird position. So I got some nasty, nasty blisters. Absolutely hated the boot. And the funny thing was that I didn't experience that problem with the Vapor 4 SLs. Anyways, then we moved on to the Vapor 5s, the Vapor 6, the Vapor 7s. I haven't got those because they were crappy Vapors. Instead, I had the Superfly ones, which I have blacked out, the Volt Superfly ones. Not the best blackout job in the world, I'm gonna admit to it, but funny boot, interesting with the carbon fiber sole plate. I got the Superfly 2s, the Safari ones, the first CR7 signature boot they ever made. Not the best football boot in the world. Also, we have the Nike Sense Stud, which back then really excited me. But honestly, it's probably the biggest gimmick ever on a football boot. Got the Superfly 3s, basically the same as the Superfly 2s, but a little bit less bad, I would say, but still pretty, not my favorite boot, let's say that. Then, thankfully, they made the Vapor 8. Back then I proclaimed it to be one of my favorite football boots ever. It still is to this day. The problem is they just made better Vapors, so yeah, but it's still really much up there. And the mango colorway is just absolutely magnificent. And coming from the stiff copper upper on the Superfly 3, this was a dream coming true. Then of course I got some Vapor 9s. Oops, look at this. All my boots are falling down. I got some Vapor 9s in SG Pro and AG. I got some Vapor 10s. I got my Vapor 11s, obviously. I got the Neymar colorway here, just for example. And of course, I have the Flyknit Ultras just casually sitting there for me to wear if I want to. So that was the low-cut Mercurial shelf. Let's move it down a notch after I've cleaned up to the high cuts. Okay, so I promised you to move down to the high cut Mercurial stuff, so that is what we're gonna do. And as you can see, there is a bit of an overweight of Mercurial Superfly 5s. It's not that I didn't like the Superfly 4s. In fact, I actually adored it when it came out. Of course, with the Hyper Punch colorway, Hyper Punch and Volt 2014, and my mind was absolutely blown. Such a soft Flyknit Nike skin upper, ridiculously nice carbon fiber plate, and I thought it couldn't get better. Then they made this beastie, Volt and pink. And I might not be a pink kind of guy, but Volt, I rock with that all flipping day. Of course, also have the CR7 Gala Knights Superfly 4, not as soft as the OG Superfly 4, but really, really nice. Look at the shininess of this bad boy. Just had to keep that one. But apart from that, it's just Superfly 5 all the way. And I know I keep saying that Vapor 11 is my favorite boot ever. If that hadn't existed, the Superfly 5 would be in there with a pretty good shout because it's also an awesome boot, especially because of, let me get it out here, especially because of that anatomical sole plate. I love it a little bit more on the Vapor because we don't get the dynamic fit collar and the upper is a little bit thinner on the Vapor. But apart from that, this is a very, very fine football boot. And look at it. It just looks fast, like a Mercurial is supposed to. And as you can see, if you come a little bit closer here, you can actually see that I have quite a few good colorways. Got quite a lot of the motion blurs here, which reminds me a little bit of the Vapor 8 Clash. And of course, the Air Max ones, which are also pretty cool. If they made that in a Vapor, I would be absolutely sold. I would be done, completely done. But if we move over to the other side, we have a little bit more for you because I got my CTR 360 Maestries. Now, as you may recollect, they made another silo in 2009, the CTR Maestri silo, and they came out with this. It was headlined by Cesc Fabregas, and actually, despite even back then being a little bit heavy, it was a nice boot. They introduced this Kangalite material that you know even today from the Opus, and back then it was really, really revolutionary. Oh, this synthetic kangaroo leather, it was more water resistant, and they made these dampened parts to give you a little bit more control when you were taking the ball down from the air. They got you this pad pass on the inside, and actually it was a little bit of what we'd see on the Predator LC a bit further down the road. But I have all three generations of the Maestris. The Maestri 1s, I have the Maestri Elites here, as you can see, with a carbon fiber sole plate instead of the normal plate in the gray, wolf gray, I don't know what you call it, wolf gray orange colorway. Then I have the 2s, which was also decent football boots. I know Jolta absolutely adores these. And then I have the 3s in that bright vault, safety, whatever you want to call it, colorway, and even have a brand new pair that I'm saving for a special day to pull out. Beautiful pair of boots, and one of those silos that I know Magista came and took over and it was brilliant, but I miss it just a little bit. It was too short-lived, I'd say. If we get down and dirty to the Tiempo shelf, as you can see, got quite a few Tiempo legends as well. I haven't got the 1s, I haven't got the 2s, played in them, but they're gone. They're in boot heaven now. I do have the Tiempo Legend 3s here. I didn't love them as much as I loved the 1s and the 2s, but I still got them just because, well, I decided to keep them just in case I want to play in them one day. But the Tiempo 4s is a pair that I actually occasionally still pop out because I love them so much. A, because the colorway is awesome, but also because this kangaroo leather upper here is mind-blowingly soft and the paddedness is just absolutely next level. Sadly, I didn't get to keep any of my Tiempo Legend 4 Elite boots, but yeah, I would have loved to add those to my collection as well. But the Elites, beautiful, only have the 4s. Let's see if we can get a name. Oh, there we go. And I didn't cause too much damage here. That is good. I got a lot of Tiempo Legend 5s, as you can see over here. Pretty many of the launch colorway in AG, SG, what have you not. Decent football boots. Didn't love them as much as the 4 because the upper got thinner, and I really loved that paddedness of the Legend 4. Then came the Legend 6. Was a bit of a bigger fan. They introduced this foam 3D skeleton to take away some of the seams, and actually when you played in it a bit, it really softened up nicely, and after getting used to that thinner kangaroo leather, I actually started to appreciate it quite a bit. The only problem with the Legend 6 was, as some of you may know, that the durability, it wasn't... The 5 and the 6, they weren't the most durable boots in the world, but while they lasted, they were actually pretty good football boots. And as you can see, I have quite a lot of colorways of the 6 as well. Got the Air Maxes as well. For those of you who appreciate that, maybe you'll recognize them from when Sergio Ramos wore them quite a few matches. And of course, my favorites. There you go. And then of course, recently, we got the Tiempo Legend 7. Quite I would say drastic change. We got the Flyknit tongue on it, and I could perhaps I would have liked a kangaroo leather upper that was a little bit more premium, a little bit more soft. You feel that leather love a bit more like you did on the Legend 4s. But all in all, this is a very good football boot, very good general football boot that I can't say that much against. So decent continuation of the Legend series, and yes, I need to go and watch this as well. And on the shelf, I also keep my Nike Premiers, because as you know, I'm a big fan of the Premier. It's a very, perhaps the best value boot you can get on the market. It's 100 euros, and I have a good few colorways. Here I have the OG colorway, brilliant. I have the white and the red, which was a remake of a beautiful Tiempo Legend colorway. I think it was on the Tiempo Legend 1 that we saw this colorway. And of course, I have the Nike Premier 2 with the anti-clog plate. I've yet to break them out because, well, I don't know why, because as you can see in some of my boots, it's been muddy. But I'm gonna break them out this winter because anti-clog, it works. Moving a bit to the right then, we have a bit, should we say a little bit of everything here. I've got some singles, I got my custom pair of Pantofola Doros, which means the golden slipper. And they might not be golden, but they do feel like slippers. And I really, I can't do it to them to actually break them out. Also because I think them being Volt and green, I'm gonna be kicked to pieces if I wear these on the pitch. So there we go. What do we have here? Superfly 3, we got one of the prototypes of the first legless boot, which we did a video back when proper English here, please, Jay. We did a video on it before it came out, and this was before it had the pull tab, and it didn't really look like the final pair. But yeah, funny thing to keep. And a few really old worn pairs of the Puma V106s. So there you go. A little bit of everything here. Then we move over to the right, to a shelf that I don't really know what to say here, because it is my Warrior shelf. And as you know, Warrior is like the predecessor of New Balance. Basically, New Balance owns Warrior, and it was a company that's been doing a lot in lacrosse in the States. So then they came in. They became sponsors of Liverpool, which are now sponsored by New Balance, as you know, kind of to test out the waters. Can an American company not used to making football boots actually get into the market? And they tried with a little bit of everything. I think, you know, the Screamer here wanted to be a bit of a Predator CTR hybrid, and it looked absolutely terrible. Perhaps one of the worst looking football boots I have in my collection. And they made some, you know, they made some decent stuff. They made the Screamer in K leather, which was actually not a bad football boot, had a really good fit around the heel, and all in all, this was a solid boot. Then they also made terrible choices, like the Warrior Gambler, and it was not a bad boot, but then they just made, you know, the Glory Hole, which was, they wanted to be a bit edgy and fresh and cool, and oh, look at us, we dare call it a Glory Hole, but all in all, it's just really stupid. So good thing New Balance came and took over and made the Adizero. A little bit more to the right, and we got a shelf that is part, should we call it the shelf of shame, and then we got some really awesome stuff to the right of it. The shelf of shame part is the Joma Fit 100 Lite, which I don't want to spend too much energy on because it's a rubbish football boot. It probably really battles the Screamer of the title of being the absolutely ugliest football boot I have on the... Look at this. It has like a yellowish green eagle on. What is that? Kind of sorcery. And the funny thing was back when I tested it, the seams and the way they set it up, it was kind of taken, stolen directly, I want to say, from the F50 Adizero back then, the leather boot, which had the exact same seams on the front of the boot. Didn't perform really well either. Then we have the Asics Tigrea, which was actually, it was well, comfortable football boot, really good leather, but you know, you can kind of tell that the shape of it was a different experience to play with that I was normally used to. And then we have another boot that I absolutely tore to pieces in my review of it, the Select Milan Retro, with a heel lockdown that's more or less non-existent. Wanted to be like a Copa Puma King kind of a competitor, but it's just rubbish. It looked kind of cool though, but no. On the other hand, we have the Pantofola Doro Lazzarinis, and this is what the Select Milano Retro should have been. Super soft kangaroo leather, just really takes to the shape of your foot. And while it might look like something from the 1970s, I want to say it's actually a really good boot. Now, another thing I also want to mention is the Pele Sports Trinities. Now, Pele Sports sadly isn't around anymore, but they made this absolutely beautiful lightweight speed boot that had a really interesting stud configuration, and then this insanely thin, really almost untreated leather upper. It's one of the gems in my collection, and the only reason I don't wear them any more than I do is because they're really unstable, and also they're very fragile. So if I wear them too much, they're gonna end up like this. So you wonder why they aren't around anymore. But good boots. Okay, but time to stand up a bit for the king, because we're talking my Messi boots, and as you know, the Messi silo was introduced after the whole Adidas reshuffle in 2015, where they made the Messi 15, and it was probably not the prettiest football boot that has ever been made by anyone, but it was actually pretty good. It had a hybrid touch upper and introduced the Messi Gambit Tracks sole plate, which he still uses today in some shape. So that was a decent sole plate, decent football boot, and reminded me a little bit of the F50s that had died in the reshuffle. Then they made the Messi 16 plus 1.1, whatever it's called, 16.1 is what it's called, and they also made the Messi 16 plus pure agility. Now, there was this interesting thing that Messi was on the marketing material for the pure agility, which was obviously the one with the lace cover, but in fact, as most of you probably know, he wore the 16.1s, which in my opinion was also the slightly better boot. Now, what separated this from the X, because it kind of looked like an X, was that this was made with agility knit and was also a little bit more sticky than the X. But apart from that, they actually reminded me a little bit of each other. Speaking of this, look at this masterpiece. We actually went from this atrocity to this. And then the silo, well, it died. There you go. Moving over here, we got my modern Adidas leather boots, and as you can see, there's a bit of 11 Pro, there's a bit of Adipure, there's a bit of Gloro even, so it's a bit of a mixture of what is good. And actually, I have a lot of my, our secret favorites over here. We got the 11 Pro 3s, a blackout test boot, and not only is it a really good boot, but it just looks exceptionally good in blackout. Not as good, I would say, in the launch color. Decent, but that's how it goes. I love my blackouts more. I have the first 11 Pros, not necessarily my favorite football boot ever, but that's how it goes. I do also have some Adipure 4s. If I can get them out, there we go. This is gonna go badly. Oh, damn. There you go, guys. Adipure 4s, really good football boot, but the thing is that they made an even better one, the Adipure 4 SL, which is one of my all-time personal favorites. It had this amazing thin piece of kangaroo leather. It had the spring frame outsole from the Adizero boots, and then it had all these little gold accents with the tongue that had a bit of padding to it compared to the Adipure 4. And it was just such a lightweight package, 200 grams, giving you that leather love, the lightweight sensation, and a really sharp touch on the ball. And look at the silhouette. It looks like a race car made out of pure leather. Beautiful. One of the absolute treasures in my collection. I love this boot. We also got a bit of Gloro. It kind of disappeared into the abyss behind all the boots here. Gloro, the 15s and the 16s. I like the 15s a little bit more because the leather somehow feels thinner, and obviously we have the tongue, which is not on the Gloro 16s. It was also really, as you may remember, this was the boot that made Luca go because the leather is also really soft, but it's a little bit more padded. Gloro, very good football boot at a very good price, so definitely also something to look at. And now sadly, just like the Messis, the Gloros have died. It kind of continued as the new Copas, the 17.2s, but the Gloro itself is gone, sadly. Then we move over here to a shelf that's a bit of a mixture. We've got some Nitrocharges at the bottom and we got some Nemeziz at the top. Speaking a bit about the Nitrocharge here, it was introduced to give you a bit of a different take on the Predator, because it might look a bit like the Predator, but it wanted to give you more lockdown, use your energy a bit better. So they introduced this here rubber band that ran across the forefoot called the Energy Sling. And the idea was to basically go in and eliminate all the sideways movement that your foot made inside the boot when you made cuts and all that stuff. So to optimize your energy, lock your foot better inside the boot. And the thing is, it was a pretty decent football boot. It just didn't really deliver to what it promised to do. So Adidas, well, they killed it after 2 generations. And I just gotta say, this is another blackout test boot that I absolutely love. So brands, hook me up with some more, please. These are brilliant. Obviously, there's a bit of Nitrocharge 2, crazy light, crazy looking boot, but actually a rather decent football boot. And then we move up to the Nemeziz. Let me bring out, just because I can, another blackout test boot, the Nemeziz 17 Plus 360 Agility. Beautiful football boot. Not the best lockdown in the world. You can say it's another take on the whole agility thing compared to the Nitrocharge, but a really good looking boot. And actually, I also have a blackout test model of the 17.1s, which I would say that as you can see, I should probably clean that up too. I would say that I prefer this to the 17 Plus, simply because you do get a bit more lockdown thanks to the laces. I like the cut, however, on the 17 Plus more around the ankle. So if they can make like a mixture of these two, I would be a very, very happy camper. We got a few colorways of those, but I really, really treasure my blackout test boots. Next up is the Adidas F50 Shelf. Now, it's a silo that's been around for a very, very long time. It was also killed off in 2015, but I've kept a lot of my favorite boots. We go all the way back to the F50 Adizero that came out just before they launched the Adizeros. And it was, it had some good ideas. It introduced the sprint skin that we then saw on the F50 Adizeros later on. And, so it was a decent thing, but it had the lace cover. As you can see, I cut it off because I hated it. But also, the whole tuner thing with changing your studs, it was a good idea, but it didn't really work. You saw outsoles that snapped, studs that fell off, and it was just a hassle to really exchange your studs and put it on a new chassis and all that stuff. So the idea was good, but they just made it better with glitch, which I'm gonna get into a little bit later. But then they introduced the Adizero in 2010. They made two versions. They made a synthetic version and a leather version. Sadly, my synthetics are broken because it was a really delicate boot. But I managed to somehow keep my leather boots alive. This is really, really, really light. I think it's about 185 grams or something in my size, which back then in 2010 for a leather boot was absolutely unheard of. And still to this day, it's something that I enjoy playing it. It's not necessarily the most comfortable thing in the world because it's been shaved down to an absolute minimum. But from an evolution, innovation, performance point of view, this was absolutely groundbreaking, and to me, one of the key factors of speed boots being where they are today. Then they developed it a little bit. They made a second generation of the first Adizero. I don't have that. Then they introduced the My Coach generation of the Adizero. Let's see if it holds. Which was this one. Not the best looking boot in the world. Again, I kept the leather boot. The other one I used so much that it broke. I'm beginning to see a pattern here. All my synthetic boots are breaking. But anyway, managed to keep the leather version, introduced the My Coach bubble in the outsole, which was Adidas' whole new thing. When you took this little green chip, you put it in the outsole, and then it analyzed your game, looking at how many kilometers you ran during a match, how fast you ran, what was your top speed, all that stuff. Pretty cool, but it also, it was a bit of a hassle getting the chip to talk to the app, and it once told me I ran almost 36 kilometers an hour. So that's like Usain Bolt speeds. Anyway, solid boot, but for me, it wasn't as good as the first two generations of the Adizero. Then they obviously also introduced the Messi boots on that generation. His red and white boots, launched them in Barcelona, by the way. Went to see Messi, which was pretty cool. And also, it was not as good as the first generations. They moved on to the other two. Let's see if I can get it out here. Made another generation that was a little bit similar to the generation before, the one that introduced My Coach. It still had My Coach, by the way. Updated the sprint skin a little bit, so it was slightly softer and a little bit more pliable. But other than that, it was more, should we say, of a facelift than an actual evolution of the boots. But then, in 2013, for the 14 World Cup, came the Adizero, I want to call them Sambas. The 2014 Adizero, which we also have in the launch colorway right here. It came out in the Samba colors. Adidas made it for the World Cup in Brazil, so they kind of turned it up a little bit on the color front. So they gave us this color variation. Again, I have it in leather, I also have it in AG, and then I have my blackout test boots in synthetic. To this day, one of my favorite Adizeros that I've ever worn. A, because it's black. B, because this here Hyper Touch synthetic they used on the toe box instead of the sprint skin was beautiful. It was brilliant, it was beautiful, it was beautiful. So there you go, really, really good boot. 156 grams, so really, really light. Stay true to the whole Adizero super lightweight mantra. And for me, this is when the F50, the Adizero, really came back after a few, should we say, not so good years. So it started really well, and then it also ended up actually dying with a bit of pride, because we ended up with see if I can get it out. I want the synthetic one. Let's do it. Here we go. So this was introduced for the There Will Be Haters campaign, and it actually made a full hybrid touch upper. So the weight also went up a little bit. They introduced a more radical sole plate. For me, this wasn't as good as the 2014 model, but it was a decent boot that I know caused a bit of a stir because it looked so different. Introduced the 3 stripes on the heel and had a really, really radical design. I like to refer to this as having a lava lamp design. Not the prettiest either, but it was the last Adizero to be made, up until this point at least, because then came the reshuffle and a goodbye to everything we knew from Adidas. And coming in to take over from the F50 was the X. And now they introduced the X back in, let me see if I can find it, 2015 with the X15. Come on out, fella. There we go. X15, another blackout test boots. As you know, by now, hopefully, I love me some blackout test boots. And as you can see, Adidas have taken good care of me over the years, making sure that I can get the boots in good time so I can actually test them out and give you guys the review on the day it releases. That's one of the benefits of being a boot reviewer. You actually get to test stuff before it comes out. Brilliant stuff, by the way. But yeah, they launched the X, had a bit of again, this whole lava lamp design to it. Not the prettiest necessarily, but also introduced this here tech fit color around the ankle to give you that transition from boot to foot. Interesting stuff, not necessarily the best boot ever, but a nice, should we say, transition model, which I kind of feel that the first boots in the 15 generation were. Ace 15, X15, Messi, as you heard. But then, actually in the whole 15 cycle of X, yeah, this is gonna, I'm just gonna, there you go. They also made a primate version, which again went to show that they wanted to go somewhere with the primate boots, because they actually made a full primate upper with a knitted ankle sock as well. That was actually integrated into the upper itself. And for me, this was a big, big step in the right direction, because they actually managed to show that they could work with primate and not make crappy boots like the primate Samba was. And they actually, you know, they were going someplace with primate. They also made it in Ace, as I'm gonna show you in a little bit. You know what, I'm gonna give up. There's too many boots. Moving on to 16, because this is when the X really came into its own and became actually one of my personal favorites on the market. I'm just gonna pick it out here. The Pure, it was actually called at the time, the Pure Chaos. It's had so many names now. The X16 Plus Pure Chaos, made for the Euros. And not only did it look hella cool, like it's had a claw tearing it to pieces, creating chaos, all that jazz. It was actually also a brilliant, brilliant football boot. It took a bit of it took a bit of time for me to really appreciate the genius of the Pure Chaos, and since the Pure Speed. This here, really, really soft upper that just felt broken in from the moment you put it on, and the foam on the inside that is a bit thicker than your average football boot, so it feels extremely padded and elegant. I loved it. Combining it with the tech fit color and the fit you get is just putting on like a really soft glove moccasin on your foot that just, it's elegant, it's fast, it looks like a spaceship. It's brilliant. Then they made a lot of different colors here. They also, before I forget it, they made what was this called? It was called the X15 SL, the super light, which was indeed super light. They'd actually taken some of the stripes and they'd hollowed them out, just used a really, really light mesh and kind of introduced the whole fit around the ankle with the tech fit color that reminded me a little bit of the silhouette on the 16. So this was kind of like an intermediate boot between the 15 and the 16. And it looked pretty cool, and Benzema actually wore this for a long, long, long time. Decent football boot, could have done with a better sole plate, but that's a story for another day, because we move on to, let's say, Glitch. They introduced Glitch, which was basically what the iTunit, or the Tunit boots, should have been. A customizable, interchangeable system for your football boots, where you buy an inner sock, you buy an outer sleeve. I have two, by the way. You can probably see which one I've used the most. I haven't used this yet. Because it's white, it looks so clean, I don't want to get it dirty. Anyway, you basically buy an outer sleeve and then you take your sock, you put it in, and then you have a football boot. If you want to change the upper, you buy a new one. Brilliant. Sadly, and annoyingly, this is only in London, in Berlin, and in Paris. So us mere mortals around Europe who are not in those countries or in the States or wherever, we can't get glitch yet. The funny thing is that glitch is kind of like, people would say that it's a deconstructed X. And the thing is that it's actually the other way around, that it ended up, you know, they were developing glitch and then they figured out, oh, this is pretty cool. What happens if we actually assemble it, making the X? So you can kind of see the similarity here. The X actually came after glitch, which is what happened when they just said, okay, we're not going to give them the choice. They can't pull it to pieces. We're just going to assemble it for them. Made the X. So thank you, guys who created glitch. They made one of my favorite boots on the market. And it continued into, fell to the floor, the X17 Plus Pure Speed. New name, slight update, a little bit of a facelift, but still the same brilliant boot. And something that I'm really, really happy to have had for such a long time. So X, it started a bit, should we say, shaky. It wasn't the best thing ever to come out, but again, it laid the foundations for something really, really great that I actually appreciate a lot. So listen, guys, I got my X's back in order, which is really important to me. I lose my absolute shit. Then we move up to the Aces, and I'm a bit afraid of actually taking them down because right now it's taken a long time to get them up there, but I'm gonna do it for you guys. Now, on the A shelf, see, the thing is, for me, my brain is not advanced enough to really keep Ace and X apart. So if at some point in this video I call the Ace an X and vice versa, it's probably just because I'm stupid. It's not that I don't know the names, just because I'm stupid. Keep that in mind. But before we talk Ace, I also have the first proper Primeknit boot that Adidas made, the Primeknit 2.0s. Now, as I'm gonna explain to you a bit later when we look at my limited stuff, the first Primeknit boots, they were absolute atrocities. They were terrible. They looked hella cool and they were limited and all that jazz, but they were terrible football boots. But this was actually a really, really good boot. It was radical, but Adidas were trying out the whole S heel tap kind of, S-curve heel tap kind of thing. Really giving you the support where you needed it, but also giving you the freedom of your heel to move, well, freely. It also had this internal compression fit tongue that we've seen on the Ace since then. Kind of the first step towards making laceless boots. So this was actually, despite looking really, really, really ugly, it's actually so ugly that it's almost cool. But despite looking really ugly, it was a decent football boot, I would say. It was a fun football boot, and it made a foundation for the Ace going forward and for Primeknit going forward in football. So a bit of an important piece to remember, despite perhaps fading into obscurity a little bit, the Primeknit 2.0. Anyways, what you want to see, the Ace. Now, it all started off with Ace 50. Launched in Berlin for the Champions League final, and kind of the spiritual successor of the Predator, because we also had like the friction, the control elements, and this was made for the midfielder who pulls all the strings. Basically the same story you hear about Ace today. Now, this was a low-cut boot, and it was alright. It was basically meant to give you a lot of control, underfoot control, because apparently Ace players roll the ball under their foot a lot. So yeah, they gave you, I think it was 37 studs or something. It was completely ridiculous. But anyways, it wasn't a bad boot, but it wasn't really a standout good boot either. And coming from the Predator, it was, yeah, alright. Alright. They also, however, thankfully, made a Primeknit version of that, which was actually really, really good. It reminded me a little bit of the fit in the Primeknit 2.0s. An insanely soft forefoot, but again, it had the same stupid sole plates over here. It was a nice boot, a really comfortable boot, but this was something that if you took the sole plate off and put a normal sole on it, I'd probably wear it around the house as a slipper in my bathroom. So, yeah, there you go. But that led us into laceless. A16 Plus Pure Control. When I saw this for the first time, I was like, you gotta be, are you kidding me? And then I absolutely lost my shit. Sorry, cut that out. I lost my mind when I tried it on, because this fit is unlike anything I've ever tried in a football boot, because you simply didn't have the laces. Okay, it didn't have enough lockdown, and especially in the heel, you had these gaping holes when you bend your foot. And there was a lot of stuff that didn't really work the way it could have worked on the 16 Plus, but it introduced laceless technology, and it actually proved that you could make it work with a knitted upper. Of course, it didn't introduce it per se, because the Lotto Zero Gravities did that back in the day, 2006. But in the modern times, with knitted football boots, with the high-cut football boots, this was a big break for Adidas. With the simple design language, I think this is really what put them back on the map as really front runners of innovation. So a big deal. Terribly ugly launch colorway, but they gave us some absolute stunners over the 16 generation. And actually then, you thought, okay, 16 that's pretty good. But then they gave us 17. They actually made a bit of a funny thing, which is something I'm glad to have. The 16/17 Plus Pure Control, because this was actually meant to be the 17 Plus, and I think it's actually called the 17 Plus Pure Control. The fact of the matter is that it's still a 16 Plus disguised as what the 17 Plus would look like. So it got the forefoot with the knit pattern of the 17 Plus, but still had like the midfoot and the heel from the 16 Plus. And that is an interesting thing, because if I can pull out the 17 Plus here, as you probably already guessed, yes, I got a blackout test pair of the 17 Plus, and I got it before I got this. So you can see my confusion when I've tried this. I've tried the whole neoprene tongue package and really tried all the awesomeness of the 17 Plus, the much tighter fit, the much softer forefoot and the toe box on the 17 Plus. And they gave us a 17 or a 16 and a half, if you will. So that was a bit confusing. But thankfully then, for the checkered black pack, they gave us the full 17 Plus package. I have checkered black right here. And apart from looking ridiculously good, this was the first time that we actually could really get into grips with the new tech fit color. The tighter fit, the slightly better lockdown, although it's still not perfect, but it really was a massive step in terms of taking the good idea from a 16 Plus and laceless on a high-cut football boot and actually turning it into a boot that performed so well that I would like to use it in a match. So there you go. One more thing I want to mention, because for Ace 17, he also gave us this. Now, this is a boot that I haven't worn it as much as I would like to, because it's actually a really good football boot. One of those boots where you get a really nice sock-like fit in the midfoot, a lovely heel, perhaps one of the best heel taps on the market, and then you get a relatively soft kangaroo leather with the same kind of construction as you see on the Tiempos, with the foam skeleton on the inside of the toe box. Something I haven't used as much as I want to, but if you're one of those people out there who want a bit of leather and you want like the supreme sock-like fit of the tech fit color, you should take a look at the 17.1s in leather. Another one of my favorite shelves alongside the Mercurial shelf is the Predator shelf. Now, as you may know, the Predator was killed off as a silo in 2015 in the big reshuffle at Adidas, but I managed to keep a lot of the good stuff, and even the very first Predator to come out. This bad boy in the original box, sent to me by a very dear friend. Now, the first Predator here was actually not even made by a guy working for Adidas. It was made by a guy called Craig Johnston. At the time, he was coaching some kids playing football, teaching them how to swerve the ball. And basically, he told them that they should do like they were using a table tennis bat, basically using the friction on the bat to put spin on the ball. And they said, well, the table tennis bat has the friction, has the rubber elements, our boots don't. So he thought, how can I turn a football boot into a table tennis bat? And then he thought, I'm gonna put the rubber elements on, and he did. He took it to Adidas, said, guys, I have the next big thing here. And the thing was, Adidas didn't really care. So what did Craig do? Well, he went to Bayern Munich, to some of the biggest German legends of the game, who were sponsored by Adidas, by the way. He put them in his new Predator prototype. They loved it. He had filmed it. He went back to Adidas, said, guys, you gotta do it now. And they did. And it became perhaps one of the most iconic silos ever in the history of football boots. And the marketing material back then said, 100% legal, 0% fair. And then obviously the Predator silo became a very, very popular one, thanks to, of course, models like the Accelerator in 1998, but also the Mania in 2002. And actually, I also have a pair of OG Manias in the original box, of course, in the original colorway. SG, like perhaps a lot of people remember them, on the feet of Beckham, Raul, Zidane, Del Piero, and so many other people. Ballack, if you're German. And this was an interesting boot because it brought out the swerve elements, actually put them more or less inside the upper. They weren't as protruded anymore. So it was kind of an interesting mix because you got the friction, but the boots weren't as bulky anymore. Then you got the big fold-over tongue, the elastic rubber band. And there's not much more to say than that this is one of the most iconic football boots, I think, has ever been made alongside the original R9 Mercurials. I also had, or used to have, the pulses, the precisions, the OG precisions. I had the absolutes, but sadly I used them so much that all of them broke. And so the oldest boot I have after the Manias is actually the Power Swerve. So it's not necessarily that old, and it really was from a time where the Predator was refined. It's still kangaroo leather, but the swerve elements had gone even further down in thickness, so they actually weren't as chunky anymore. And I really, really loved that on the boot because it was more nimble and it still felt like a Predator. Back in the day, I cut off the tongue for some stupid reason. Today, it still annoys me that I cut off the tongue. But that's the way it goes. One of my favorite Predators ever to be made. And that's a bold claim, only topped by one, which I'm gonna show you in a bit. Because after the Power Swerve, Adidas made perhaps one of the worst Predators they ever did. Predator X. It was chunky, it was heavy, the fit wasn't very good. They made this burrito fold over tongue thing that it didn't feel good. And it didn't really feel like a Predator. They lost the tongue. Yeah, let's leave it at that. And talk about the Adipower Predator, because there might have been another shock to Predator lovers. Not only had they dropped the tongue, but they also dropped the kangaroo leather, making a boot out of calf leather now. And initially, I was skeptical too. I actually didn't like the Adipower that much in the beginning, but then I played in it, and I started loving it ever so much. Because the fit was absolutely brilliant in this. It was light, it was nimble, and you still got the nice grip and the nice, like, weight behind your strikes when you shot with the Adipower. And just the fit, the touch on the ball, and the weight in general, absolutely beautiful football boot. Then after the Adipower, of course, came the Lethal Zones boots, the ones and the twos. They replaced the calf leather with Hybrid Touch, a synthetic leather, and introduced more, should we say, helping zones, control zones, if you will, lethal zones, as the name suggests, on the boot, simply to help you give you more friction on the ball when you struck it. Wasn't necessarily a Predator in like a historical sense, in my opinion, because it swayed so much from the original idea, but it was a nice control boot and did reasonably well. Then in 2015, 14? It was 14, they brought back the Predator Instinct, which felt more like a traditional Predator, had more aggressive control areas, followed up on the lethal zones, but made them more aggressive and made the boot itself a bit more, it had a bit more oomph to it, a bit more weight behind it. So brilliant football boot, not again a traditional Predator, but it felt more like the Predators of old and was a, should we say, worthy goodbye to the Predator silo as we know it for now. Of course, Adidas have since made remakes of the old Predators. They've made the Revenge Pack, which was based on the Instinct. They made, for instance, the Accelerator, again Hybrid Touch. Didn't have the same amount of comfort and weight behind it, but it was a decent remake, although they have made better ones. because this year they first made the Champagne Predators, also Hyper Touch, a lot lighter than the OG Manias, but they had a bit more of an actual Predator feel to them. So that was should we say, a good start. And then they made the Precisions, which is perhaps the best remake of them all, because the entire upper was actually a one-to-one reproduction of the OG Precision. Same stitching, same leather material, same swerve zones, all that jazz. And the only difference was that they slapped a new A17 sprint frame sole on the, underneath the leather upper instead of the OG tooling. So there you go, Predator from the first to the latest. Let's see where it takes us in the future. But guys, if you're still with me, you are absolute heroes, but I promise you, there's even more good stuff, so just stay tuned. Now we move on to my Puma collection. As you can see, I don't have as much Puma as I have Adidas and Nike, but I still have quite a lot. We start off in the power section because I have my Power Cats here, my Power Cats 110. Very, very old school, very, very chunky, but also very, very fun to play with. And my Power Cats 112, which refined the technology, the 3D power shooting technology from the 110s, and then put it in even smaller fins on the toe box. But they were still quite, should we say, they were tanks, proper boot tanks. But they were pretty comfortable and fun to play with if you're into that sort of thing. Then Puma thought, okay, we need to kind of refine our whole power concept here. So how do we do that? Do we make a more chunky boot, an even heavier boot? Do we go down the Predator road, put some tungsten power in it, make us more gimmick? No, Puma went an entirely new road. They designed the Evo Power. And the Evo Power was an interesting concept because it actually, after a lot of research, showed Puma that you get the hardest shot, at least according to them and the universities they work with, you get the hardest shot if your foot can actually move to a natural bending position where it's flexed to the most, because that is what nature allowed the foot, or where nature allowed the foot to strike at its hardest. So basically they wanted to allow the foot to move in such a way. So they engineered the Evo Power to have both the upper and the sole plate that could actually move with the foot, but didn't stretch in the other direction. And that resulted in this here Adidas synthetic, which I first experienced on the first Evo Power, and it is one of the best synthetic upper materials I have ever seen in my entire life. It's called. Straight out of the box, it is so very, very soft. And although the boots were terribly ugly and bad looking, I don't know, it looks like something out of a Playmobil commercial. They were really, really decent football boots and a very good first try in the Evo Power range. Of course, then they made the Evo Power 1.2s, which, okay, they looked a little bit better, I would say. Not necessarily something for the art fair either, but they actually refined the upper again. They put some AccuFoam underneath for an even thinner upper. We still had the flexibility, and it was a nice performing football boot, still back in the day, very, very underrated. They upgraded it for the Evo Power 1.3s, had a bit more of a, again, that foamy synthetic feel that we got on the first Evo Power. You got it, you can bend it, and this, again, really, really comfortable straight out of the box, although it is incredibly, mind-blowingly ugly. See, that was the Evo Power's biggest disadvantage, I would say, because it had everything going for it. It was light, it was comfortable, and it performed well. And although you couldn't strike the ball necessarily that much harder, it was just a nice, well-performing boot. Thankfully, they fixed all of that in the Evo Power Vigor, which, as I've said a couple of times before, is one of my favorite boots on the market, alongside the Vapor 11 and the X17 Plus, because the fit in this bad boy has evolved from the first Evo Power. So you get Adidas, you get this spandex sock that they put on it to give you an even more sock-like, stream-like sensation on your foot. You get a bit of AccuFoam, and you just get, should I say, the entire evolution of Evo Power into one package. So this is probably the pinnacle of the Puma Power boots, and I'm actually really glad that they make these, because it is a good and really underrated football boot. But is Power dead? I mean, is Power gonna shift? Predator, Evo Power? Let's see in the future. Moving to the right, we've got more Evo more precisely Evo Speed, because just like we got Evo Power, we also had Evo Speed. And they've made quite a few generations of these as well. I have the very first generation down here. Beautiful football boot, not necessarily the most... I mean, comparing it against the F50s and the Mercurials, this was lacking a little bit behind. It was very light, and the idea behind it was good, but not necessarily the best boot ever. And they got better. I mean, not necessarily at designing the boots, but they got a little bit better. This is very, very ugly. I'm not going to talk more about that. The 1.3s were decent. They were actually relatively soft, but still, again, came up short for some reason. There was just something lacking in the Evo Speed that didn't really have that edge to compete against the F50s and the Mercurial. So they thought at Puma, okay, what are we gonna do, guys? We need to give the Evo Speed something that the other boots don't have, because they were competing against really, really soft uppers on the Vapors and the F50s. So they thought, wait is the answer. So they made the Evo Speed SL, the Evo Speed Super Light. This weighed, I think, 102 grams. 102 grams. Okay, mine has held up pretty well. I've used it in more than 10 matches. Initially, they went on and said, you can use this for 10 matches, then it's gonna break, you have to buy a new one. That's just the name of the game. But it was actually really a good push in the right direction of really pushing boundaries and making a football boot that really defied expectations. And it wasn't necessarily to my taste, because it was simply too thin and there was too little stability, but it was an entirely new, completely unexpected sensation wearing these, and some people loved it, some people didn't. I enjoyed it for what it was and the innovation in it, but I haven't really worn them that much in a match, because I tend to get kicked down a lot, and trust me when I tell you that wearing these in a match is not very fun. They also made the Evo Speed SL in K leather, and while it wasn't the most, should we say, stable and durable boot ever made by man, it was a really, really lovely football boot. You can see there's already a bit of a split here in the heel, but the leather on this one was so thin and so soft that, combined with the fact that it weighed 150 grams, it was kind of reminiscing the OG F50 Adizero from 2010, and that in itself made me really appreciate it. But sadly, Evo Speed is also gone, and it has been combined with the Evo Touch into this, which is the Puma One. And Puma One is placed on the same shelf as, well, the guy it took over from, the Evo Touch. And that wasn't really a boot I ever appreciated that much, because the fit just didn't really, well, fit me. It was a very roomy boot, it was a very wide boot, so while it was, actually the concept was very, very good, it just never really took to me, and apparently it took to that many people. So the leather was decent, the Evo knit sock was very, very good, but there was just so much room inside of it that I just never really played with it. You could actually also wear these barefooted, which was, I guess, fun. I don't know how many people actually play football barefooted. No. Would you? No, of course you wouldn't. So there you go, Evo Touch. Looked good, but just didn't really cut it for me. We have the Puma Ones here. Also, I would say decent looking football boot, but there's just something about the leather. I wanted it to be K leather. There's something about the sock. I think this is kind of a little bit like the what are they called? Adidas boots from 2015. A reshuffle. We want to make something new, so we start off with something, but I think that this is like, it's okay, but I think they could do so much more with this silo. So let's see what they have for us in the future. Now, if you want to end off with Puma, we go to the shelf just next to it, where I have my, as you can see, my Velocity boots and my Puma King boots. Again, there are a lot of King boots that have actually, should we say, passed away over the years, which is a shame, but I do still have my King XLs. Very, very nice, extremely soft leather, but also a very tank-like chunky football boot. We have my Puma King SLs, not the XLs, the SLs, which kind of came after the XLs. Also pretty nice football boot, really, really light, really, really thin leather, and something that I would even like to wear today. I have another pair of King SLs, which was made with synthetic leather. Also pretty interesting. Not necessarily the prettiest, but actually a decent football boot. Nice comfort, low weight, and something, you know what, I would put my feet in it still today. But then under those, we have my Velocity boots. A boot that for a long time was one of my personal favorites, the V111 SL. I love my SL boots, as you can hear. It weighed 149 grams, which back then, in 2011, was completely unheard of. It was even lighter than the F50 Adizero. And combining that with a really soft, thin synthetic upper, it had a very nice, as you can see, low-cut, low-profile fit. It was just a fun boot to play with and really set the tone for Puma, going super duper lightweight. Sadly though, it didn't really fly off the shelves because they also made the standard models that looked like this. And yeah, have I ever worn these so much? No. Okay guys, time to sit down for a little while, because when I look at these guys on this shelf, the babies of my collection, my knees, they get a little bit weak. And I'm sure when I show you the first pair of boots, you will understand why. Now these, feast your eyes on pair number 14 out of 100 of the Vapor 9 CR7 in white gold. They were made for him when he won the Ballon d'Or, and one of the absolutely most prized boots in my collection. I love them. Plus, they're my favorite number, 14. We also have the other CR7 Vapor 9 that was made in only 100 pairs, the white, black, and orange. There you go, doesn't get much better than this. But just to show off, also of course have a pair of the Totties, the Legend 6 in gold with the tongue, the gladiator boots if you will. One of the only football boots I've ever seen in my life that when I took them out of the box, they actually made Jolter scream. So there you go, beautiful, and this is just something for true collectors. The box is there, you know, the finish of the outsole, the quality of the boot back, it's all there. The storytelling is there, and I gotta say, one of the best limited edition boots Nike have made for a long time. Okay, but there's more. We have, like I mentioned earlier, the disaster, and at the same time, the absolute piece of art that was the football Prime Knit Zambas. Now playing-wise, performance-wise, these boots were absolutely terrible, because what Adidas did is that they kind of went in and they coated each specific yarn of Prime Knit, so the upper was very stiff. But on the other hand, they made the world's first knitted football boot. They actually released this before the Magista. I think also just to claim that they made the world's first knitted football boot. But they made it with this samba or multicolored yarn. So you actually get a bit of a, it might look brown to you, but if you get closer, you can actually see that there's a plethora of colors, actually the same colors that they used for the Samba Pack boots for Brazil. Regular followers of the channel will know that perhaps my favorite boot ever, looks-wise, is the ones in this box. The Nike GS. The Nike Green Speeds, made of, at least some of the elements of the boots were made from castor beans. Now, castor beans are actually poisonous if you don't treat them right. Of course, Nike did, so I can smell them. I could lick them if I wanted to. I don't want to. Don't make me lick. I don't want to. Anyways, of course, they're not poisonous anymore. They look poisonous, though. Look at these. Only Neymar wore these as an official endorsee. They're 185 grams. They were made in 2012 pairs. I have pair number 82. And again, one of the first boots I ever bought as a, should we say, collector of football boots. So a really prized possession as well. But there's more, guys. There is more. And yes, there is a lot of money on this shelf. I gotta admit it. It is my guilty pleasure. What the Mercurials are basically taking designs from some of the most iconic Mercurials and slapping it on a Superfly 4. Some may love the result, I'm one of them. Others may hate it. It looks radical, and to me it's just a nice nod back in time to all the Mercurials that have really made or played a big part, if you will, on football boot history. But there's more. There's more white and gold. Victorious, just to show off a little bit, made for when Cristiano won the Ballon d'Or. Always nice to have. we have the 15th anniversary Vapor 9s. Again, I would love to have the chromes. They only made 15 of those. A very good friend of mine has them, but I only have the normal pair. They look good though. They look good. I gotta give it to Nike, but they don't look as good as the 10th anniversary Vapor 3s, which are these. And I know it doesn't really resemble like the OG R9 colorway, but they actually also made the Mercurial R9 in black and white. So this is what the design is actually inspired by, the very first Mercurial R9. And one of those boots that I would really love to play in one day, but I can't do it to them because they're brand new and they look so super fresh. I actually have a pair of brand new in box Adidas Predator Power Swerves that I just haven't been able, I haven't really been able to accept in my heart that I should get these dirty because they just look so damn good. But I bought them to play in them. I just haven't really done it because I'm an idiot. And also I have the Nike GS2s. Basically the original Nike GS, but with ACC on it. And it was worn by Christian Eriksen, Raheem Sterling and Mario Götze and all those guys back in the day. Basically the young guns who were put in this same technology as on the GX, or GS as it's called, but just in a more, should we say, futuristic look with the ACC stuff on. So there you go, my babies. But I've got more in my collection, because let's go to the Unisport archive. But guys, that was my personal private part of the collection, and now we've moved to the Unisport archive, where as you can see, we have a big rack of boots, all the colorways, all the different models that have come out over the years. And just to show you, let's say, pick a random example here, we got Pure Chaos Checkered Black lying around, box fresh, of course. What else do we have? I want to take out this guy, just a pair of the launch colorway X16 15s, of course, X15s. Look at the box, Jay. And let's say we have Adizeros in here to show you guys. There you go. Who remember Messi wearing these? Champions League final. Did some cruel things to Manchester United, but that's the way it goes. So as you can see, we have a lot of box fresh stuff from Adidas, Nike, Puma, all the brands. So let's just take a quick tour around and see what we can dig up. And we also have a rack with limited edition stuff. And that is what I know you all came to see. And guys, if you ever wondered what boot Nike heaven would feel like, look at this. Nike boxes, Nike boxes, Nike boxes all over. Let's take a look at what's inside a few of them, shall we? So here we got some Superfly 2s. I can tell by the box. Okay, there you go. CR7 pinstripe. Box fresh, of course. Let's wrap these fellas up. And basically, this is just Nike football boot Nirvana. Hypervenom reflective, anyone? Box fresh, of course. Beautiful. Brings back the memories here. There you go. More Hypervenom. Let's just check what's inside these. Tech Crafts. Brilliant. There you go. What else do we have? Oh, the Vapors in here. What do we got here? Vapor 10s. Green. Why not? Can we find something that's a bit older for you guys? Perhaps Vapor 8s. Yes. CR7s again. Digging out the CR7s today. What else can we find down? Oh, yes. My babies, the Clash boots. Perfect color combination. 2012, made for the Euros. More stuff, more Puma stuff. We got all the Evo's power here. We tried to categorize so you could, if you want to find the Evo powers, you go to one shelf. If you want to find Vapors, you go to another shelf. So it's actually easier to do. As you can see, we got all these little stickers here on the boxes, so you don't have to know the color code or like the style number. You can just go and look, say, okay, I want the tricks. Right there, or right here. Let's go a bit further down. We got some Evo Speeds down here, of course. We got all the Puma boots up here, some Kings. Got a bit of everything. Got some Tiempos down here. What should we take a look at here? Let's just see. Let's just see if we got some. Ooh, we got some Force down here. Nice. 1.4. There you go. I also have that in my personal collection, so Not that exciting. I wanna give you some stuff. So 5s. What do we have here? Ooh, beautiful. I like doing this treasure hunt kind of thing on camera. And now, guys, as I promised you, I want to show you the limited edition rack, because right over here on this entire rack, we have all our limited edition stuff. So we have Puma, we have some Adidas. Basically, I don't know where to start. I want to get these down now. The Puma V1 815s made to really commemorate a Ferrari 815. So they made it in collaboration with Ferrari. It weighed 56 grams, I think 156 grams, that's probably right. And it's just a nice premium looking boot. But guys, you want to see these Xavi Predator Instincts. Not very many pairs were made, and we have a pair in the Unisport archive. And obviously, I could talk about the limited collection for a full hour in just, all these boxes. I'm not gonna though. What I want to show you is another Adidas pair. We have the Crazy Light 99 gram boots. And actually, this box in itself is so light that I was actually just in doubt when I picked it up that there were any boots in it. Crazy story, actually, and something that was introduced to the world back in 2013 and only saw the light of day a couple of years after. But lightest boot to ever be made, 99 grams. I wouldn't want to play with it though, but it's a cool thing to have. Then, of course, we also have a lot of cool Nike boots. For instance, Flyknit Ultras, just casually sitting around, if that would be anything for you. We also have a lot of the VP9 limited editions that came out a long time ago, but still are really, really cool. The Tropic Pack, and look at this bad boy. We of course have all the 3 colors. It's just, wow, takes me back. What else do you want to see? What else do you want to see, guys? You probably want to see some of our Tiempos a bit. Of course, the Pirlos. No Pirlo, no party, with an actual cork insole. There you go. Legend 6, made for the legend himself. There we go. The lights out. Completely blackout CTR 360 Maestro 3s. Beautiful. I think they even were numbered 2,500 pairs. Blackout beauties have barely left the box, as you can see. So there's a bit of everything in the Unisport archive as well. But guys, hopefully you also learned a little bit while I made my walkthrough of the collection. There was a bit of football boot history, a little bit of connoisseur knowledge. Hopefully you'll take some of it away. But what do you think is the best boot that I have in my collection? You should let me know in the comment section right down below. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out our biggest football boot collection in the world video by clicking down here. Make sure you subscribe for more epic football boot videos by clicking the green bubble up here. Slap a thumbs up on the video if you like my collection. And don't forget to spread the word by sharing this video with your friends. And with that said, I'm signing off. Cheerio.